Hello, good morning, good evening, whatever time it is when you're listening to this. We are here today to talk about something I'd never even heard of until a couple of weeks ago, which is the Alexander Technique. Now, in brief, this is a technique for stress and pain, devised in the 1890s by someone called F.M. Alexander. And that is about as much as I can tell you for now, because we have an expert here to talk to us about it and how you can access it in Knutsford. So I'm joined by James Power. Power by name, power by nature. First of all, I did a very, very brief intro of the Alexander Technique just there. Can you sum it up for me? What is it?
Yeah, for me, the technique is about finding freedom in daily activities. So that can mean sitting down, it can mean playing football. In my case, I love running. So I found a way to run with less stress, less injuries.
This goes back to your childhood, doesn't it? So tell us why you first accessed the Alexander Technique.
So when I was 6, I had quite a big stroke, which left me with weakness down one side. And it meant that I had nearly a year off school. And I was born left-handed, so I had to learn to write with my right hand. So the technique was a way of me learning how to do lots and lots of things where I was really struggling, because the physio got me back up on my feet, but it was the day-to-day stuff like running, sport, being able to do things under pressure where it was becoming really, really difficult.
And this is where we get to the crux of what the Alexander Technique isn't it? So you obviously met with a specialist. What did they do for you?
So the first thing they did was they got me to learn how to stop. So I was a bag of nerves. I was really, really going through a difficult time as a teenager. And the teacher showed me how to get rid of unnecessary tension. And one way they do that is they get you to lie on the floor or on a table, and you do a body scan. You realize all these parts of you where you're holding on to stress that you don't necessarily need. And the first part of it is you learn to notice those things, the habits that maybe you're missing out on. And then you learn to let go and you learn to change.
One of the first things I thought when you told me about the Alexander Technique is it sounds a bit like mind over matter. Would you say that's accurate, or is it a bit more complex?
For me, it's definitely both. Your body and your brain are totally intertwined. You just can't separate the two. When you look at how different practitioners have seen the body, they've often split the brain and the body completely, and it's not particularly helpful. If you've got back pain for 5 years, you will often see people feeling extremely depressed. If someone has lost their job, they will present that with the way they sit and the way they stand and the way they move.
So it's kind of mind working with matter.
Absolutely. A lot of it's is about stopping and then learning and thinking. So you really are learning to stop doing the wrong thing and then trusting that the right thing can do itself. It's that distinction. A lot of the work does come across as quite subtle. A teacher will have trained for many, many years, and they will find ways to help the person they're working with to let go of unnecessary stress and tension. And that takes a little bit of time, but it's remarkable how much you can let go of in a very short space of time.
And I would imagine that with your stroke, it wasn't just having to learn to be left or right-handed. I would imagine that caused you a lot of stress, because as a kid trying to absorb that. So tell us how it's helped with that.
So I found lots of things quite tricky. So learning to write with another hand was problematic at first. I used to trip up when I was walking onto stage because I was in like a drama club or something. And every time I would walk on stage, I used to be scared of tripping up. The technique was a really good way of getting over that kind of anxiety, and then went from that to struggling to walk for about 400 meters to now running long distances. And if there's anything now that I put my mind to, really, I know I should be okay.
You did a marathon last year, yeah?
Yeah, I did, just about. It wasn't an easy process, but I did do a marathon last year.
So that is where you can get someone to. So we did a little session the other day. You basically put your hands on my back and asked me to smile. That's really putting it down into a little ball. Can we do a bit of the whispered R just to show people what it is?
The whispered R is one of the things Alexander taught. It's a really simple and effective way to reduce stress in real time. If you imagine it like what your lovely dog does when it's about to go have a little lie down on its favorite cushion. I always start with this idea of thinking of something or someone that really makes you smile. And it's important that that's quite personal to you. So you start by thinking about that.
So I'll do this now.
Yeah.
Okay.
And once you've got that thought in your mind, you allow that to inform how you're sitting. You allow your neck to be free. You can allow your back to lengthen and widen. And when you're ready, just think about your tongue just on the lower teeth. And you're going to take a breath, an easy breath in through your nose. And then when you're ready, just take a nice out breath on an R sound. And that's a whispered R. It's a bit like a safety valve that we've got as humans. And I suggest doing that 2 or 3 times. So we'll do it again. So in breath through your nose. And then out through the. And time again, I've seen people coming to me really stressed. They're overwhelmed. And that technique is a really effective way of just slowing down. It's something you can do in the car. I'd suggest going to a teacher and really refining that skill, but it's mainly learning to stop. It's learning to listen to your body, and then allowing your body to breathe without interference.
It is weird, because it does sort of make you feel a bit like, and everything feels quite calm and lovely. And I think the nice thing about that is that I love the fact that you think about, I've always been a big believer in a huge difference between a fake and a real smile.
Yeah.
And I thought of my doggies then, and my smile literally goes,
Yeah.
And Adam. It usually makes my smile go up here. But it does make you, it's grounding you in the things that matter to you, isn't it?
It really is.
Yeah.
There's such a huge difference between, this idea of what good posture is, and you can see a soldier standing up straight. My dad always used to say, stand up straight, show your shoulders off. And it never worked because you were tired. You'd do it for a couple of minutes.
Yeah.
And then you'd go back to how you were because the habit's quite strong. Whereas when you're moving with less stress and less tension, you'll tend to stand in a way which just looks natural. And that's what we're really aiming for. We're not trying to fix a posture. You're looking for having the right attitude, and there's definitely a right direction. It's not a fixed thing that you're looking for.
But it's like you float, don't you, when you're happy? Like I suffer from anxiety. I'm quite happy to say that, and I think a lot of people do. When I'm having an anxious time, I can feel myself do this, and when I'm happy, I'll walk down the street like. It's almost like you have a theme tune, isn't it?
It is.
Would you say it works on that?
Absolutely. I'm someone, I've had huge amounts of stress and anxiety in my own life, and the clinical trials showed just how effective AT is for people looking after themselves, for sort of well-being and self-care. That's a big part of it. You do learn to be kind to yourself, and that has such a big impact.
It sounds like a very big claim to say that a technique teaches you kindness. So talk us through how that works.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose it's a really personal thing. Alexander was just very much taken by how much people are suffering, and he had this very strong desire to want to help, and that's really practical. So in terms of kindness, there's 2 things happening really. The first is that you learn to be kind to yourself. There's so many pressures on individuals. People are feeling isolated. You listen to the voice in your head and how you speak to yourself, and it's often really quite cruel. You're playing a sport, or you kick a football and you miss, and you call yourself all sorts of names, and that's not it's not the right way. It's not a skillful way of being. And usually you see people being kinder to themselves, and then they're kinder to the people around them. I think that's where it starts, really.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. How would you say this technique has changed you, and what's the most important thing you've taken from it?
For me, it's this idea that you get to the end of your life, the biggest regret people have is that they've not been true to themselves. Far more than movement and posture, AT has been a way of me really listening to who I am as a person and stepping away from some of the habits that maybe weren't weren't true. The behaviors you pick up that aren't really serving you. So yeah, it comes across as a form of strength. You work with enough people and you realize how strong they are. And often they're not even aware of that. They're not aware of that potential. And that's my experience pretty much every day of the week with people who come to see me for lessons. You see them feeling stronger. You see them acting in a way which is much, much more confident.
The lovely thing as well is it's not just about things like whether you can run or whether you can act. You had a wonderful story that you told me about a man who learnt to kiss his wife better. Is that right?
It's true, yeah. He won't mind me saying this because he's written me a lovely testimonial. He came to lessons for back pain, and he had a course of lessons, and that improved dramatically. But he said that his wife had commented that when he kissed her, it felt like he kissed her like for the first time, and that was a big moment for him. It's really nice to hear that kind of feedback, because that's my experience too. The technique isn't just about movement and posture, it's your whole self. So when it comes to relationships, when you're being genuine, when you're not just doing things habitually, you can connect with someone in a different way.
He's not your only success story though, is he? And we'll talk about some celebrities actually as well. Just tell us names that we might know who had the Alexander Technique.
So the AT has been pretty much a secret for many, many years. But there have been some very, very successful stories. Hugh Jackman was a big, he's very, very famous. He's a big fan of the technique. Paul Newman and John Cleese, all these kind of very well-known actors. And Judi Dench would also have done lessons, and she spoke very, very highly of how AT helped her to act and to... It really is something that's taught in most of the drama colleges and music colleges around the world. The top colleges nearly always have an AT teacher there.
So it's almost like a confidence thing as well, is it? Like holding your own.
Yeah, well, Alexander was an actor, so I think it lends himself naturally to that world. And he found that when he was speaking in public, he kept losing his voice, and it was a nightmare. He was earning a living as an actor, and every time he went on stage, he went hoarse, and people were like, it was a nightmare for him, and he tried every way to fix the problem, and the doctors didn't know what to do.
Yeah.
And eventually he decided that he had to figure this out, and he spent hours meticulously trying to understand the problem, and he realized it was something that he was doing. So that's quite a big revelation, and it's one I take on personally. Often the pain, the suffering that we're in, it is something that we are doing ourselves, something that we're doing to ourselves. So
it's more taking the moment in, is it then?
Absolutely. Yeah. So much of what we do is habitual. If you think about when you get up in the morning, you throw that cup of coffee down your neck, you brush your hair, wash your face, and that's a good hour of your day which is done habitually. Imagine what happens if you stop and you're present and you let each moment really inform how you live your life. There's something really powerful about that you have a chance pretty much with every breath you're taking to stop and to think how you can respond, and that's a lovely way of being. I think it's what when you see, I've got a little girl who's 10, see her running around in the park, she's spontaneous and she's enjoying life, and that's available to everyone. There's a teacher I work with who's in his 60s who runs ultra marathons, and he feels like you're talking to someone in their 20s. He's just so young, and that's quite consistent with the AT teachers I've met. They are quite young in their mind and their outlook. Yeah.
When you lose someone you really love, and it reminds you that life is short, is it about sort of digging into that deep consciousness without the shock of something awful having to happen potentially first? Would you say that's quite
that really means a lot to me, because I had a really bad episode of dystonia where I was struggling to walk. Dystonia is like muscle tension.
Yeah.
So that was all down one side, and that happened after my dad died, and I couldn't do anything. I was struggling to get out of bed, and the grief basically took over my life, and people have that kind of experience. You live through your life long enough and you will get hit with loss, a breakup. You lose the person you love more than anything on earth. And what I experienced was this incredible teacher who showed me that there was a different way, that I could really feel those emotions and then let them go. There was a whole different approach. There was a clarity in the way I was reacting to that stress. And then, when everything didn't work, like going to a counselor, going to a physio, AT really, really helped me to recover and to heal.
And that helped you move again?
Absolutely. I think the stress I was under, the lack of sleep, was really impacting the neck pain and the dystonia that I had. And what the teacher showed me was that I could really learn how to let go of the tension that wasn't helping me, and that was a big step forward.
So say if someone came to you and they said, I've been through a really bad breakup, I'm really struggling, where would you start with that?
So as an AT teacher, you're working with the whole person. So you would start by listening to them. A person comes, those kind of losses are huge. We all will have experienced that kind of thing in our lives. And the technique really shows you how to be courageous. I've called what I do Find Your Backbone. And that's because I work with people almost every day of the week, and they are finding strength. They're learning how, when they let go of those stresses that aren't helping them, they become more human. That's it. They become less stressed, less angry, and those kind of things do start to subside, and then you see the real people behind all of that.
Now, we've obviously got to be careful about, if people have especially physical ailments. Does this substitute a doctor, a physio, or do people need to do things in a mix?
I'm a part of STAT. I'm a fully insured, registered practitioner.
Yeah.
So I've had years of training, and I work very closely with GPs, with psychologists. And if someone comes to me with a condition that I'm concerned about, I will work closely with the GP. You must always go to the doctor. AT is not a form of therapy. It's something that you learn, and it's important that that distinction is there. People do come to lessons and they feel a lot better, but that's as a result of what they've learned. It's a result of the environment that they've experienced, and it's not that they go to a massage and then get a back rub and then they feel better. They really are learning something.
I think that's the hardest thing to explain with Alexander Technique, isn't it? Because say if you go to a chiropractor, you get a good crack in, you walk out, or you go for a back rub, and I think it's putting a substance on this, isn't it, and what you get in a lesson. How many lessons would you say somebody needs to have in order for it to start working?
So in the trials that they did, there was significant improvement after 6 lessons.
Yeah.
I would often recommend people come for about 10 to 15 lessons. That's where I really start to see a dramatic difference. But there have been people who've come with a specific problem, like problems playing the guitar, and they've been able to fix that in one session.
Can you teach me to play the guitar? It's probably not quite that simple.
Probably.
Now, we talked about the NHS. Obviously, as a journalist, I've covered the fact that the NHS is struggling, that there are waiting lists, coming out of people's ears. How can this help with that?
So the key principle is that prevention is so much better than cure.
Yeah.
And the NHS is struggling, and Alexander was very, very keen that people looked after themselves, that they used themselves well. And that means, if you're picking up a load of boxes, that you'd use your body well so you're not putting your back out. It means if you're playing paddle or horse riding, you're not slouched while you're doing that. So you're letting your body work to the best of its ability.
I'm so conscious of my posture now.
I know, I must say that's the thing. It's never really about posture. It's more to do with your attitude, the way you've responded. You look at children running around when my little girl goes to the park, she's not thinking about how she's standing, but they're perfect. And that's the thing. I have got lots of faith in people to stand freely, and to stand with that kind of, you can tell when someone's smiling with not just their eyes, but their whole body's smiling. And that's the kind of one way of looking at the technique is it makes you feel better.
Just tell us about, because I found that really moving actually, that you said that you're going to work with some of the counsellors, because of course we forget that they're such wonderful people. They're taking on everyone else's problems. Just tell us about the work you're planning with them.
So this is something I've really wanted to do for a long time. People in the NHS, like doctors, dentists, psychologists, they take on huge amounts of stress, and they're helping people every day. And people in that kind of caring profession very often struggle to look after themselves. So one of the things I'm doing regularly is I give time, and I've got other colleagues who do the same, where we work with NHS practitioners at no charge, because it's a way of sharing the technique, and it's also a way of helping them to help themselves. Because if you sat at a desk all day and you're a GP or you're a dentist leaning over your patients, you will pick up a bad neck or a bad back and potentially not know how to fix that.
And like you said, with counselling, sometimes things play on your mind. I mean, I think we're all guilty of that, aren't we? We go home and we take on everything that we've had in the day. So you've got that sort of mental release as well. How do people get in touch if they wanted to do a course?
Well, the best way is to go through STAT. There's a registered body. It'll mean that the teacher you go to is insured, that they'll have trained for many, many years, that there's a minimum of 1,600 hours training to be a teacher. That's usually over 3 years. Sometimes it's longer. I took a long time to train. I was like,
for that?
Definitely. I needed a lot of work. So,
gosh, yeah. And what about if they want to come and just have some treatment?
So yeah, the first thing to say is I'd always like, just to come for a lesson, have some time. That there is a therapeutic element to it. So if you're working with someone on the table, they will often say that they feel more relaxed, they feel more at peace. But it's so important that they know that they're learning something, and they take that away as something they can practice at home. So you really are empowering people to take action.
If you could summarise how this technique has changed your life, what do you think is the most important thing about it?
The biggest regret that people have at the end of their lives is that they've not been true to themselves. Alexander taught the use of the whole self. That meant your body, your mind, and your spirit. From my perspective, the technique really was the fastest way for me to really realize what I was doing, which was stopping me from realizing my potential. In my case, I was struggling to walk 400 meters, and then I went on to run a marathon. I was struggling to concentrate, and then I went on to go to St. Andrews University and do really, really well. This is the thing. The technique opened up a way of me expressing myself, of being true to myself, which really I've never found anything like it.
Is there anything you'd like to add?
I really want to talk to you about breath work. So when I was going through a really difficult time, my dad had died in very tragic circumstances, and I just couldn't get over that feeling of loss, of feeling like I was isolated, that I'd lost my confidence, and I was in so much physical pain. I was struggling to walk. My neck just gave me this agonizing, horrible feeling. And so I went to this teacher, and he worked with me with breath work, with the whispered R. He worked in a way that no one else has ever really taught me. He showed me that right now, in any moment, there's an opportunity for you to let go of tension. It does not mean you're perfect.
Damn.
But it really does mean that there's an opportunity, a gateway to you responding and being different in any moment you're in. So that means when you're brushing your hair or you're washing your teeth, you can notice how you're breathing. You can notice, are you gasping for breath? And rather than correcting that, doing something, you really are looking at your attitude and your response to that situation you're in. So here's my challenge. Next time you're in the shower and you've got all these thoughts coming through your brain, I just want you to stop, notice your breathing, and have a go. Do the whispered R. I have a course which is about to launch online that's going to be shared to thousands of people. I really would like you to be part of it. This is going to be taught to doctors, nurses, teachers, and I really think it's going to make a difference. It's something that you could teach in your yoga studio, your Pilates studio, or in your place of work. Breathwork is a fantastic way to reduce stress and increase well-being in your workplace and in your home life. So if you'd like to be a founding member, please just sign up to the newsletter. We'll take it from there.
Okay, well, hopefully we'll either learn to brush our teeth and hair better, or we might learn to be better people. But it's certainly extremely interesting. And I hope that everyone goes away a little bit today with some positivity. And if nothing else, a big smile. Thank you very much, James.
Thank you.